I sat in my truck outside Marcello's Italian restaurant, watching the dashboard clock tick toward 7 p.m. My hands rested on the steering wheel, and I could feel my heart beating a little faster than usual. This was our annual family dinner, the tradition Dad started years ago to celebrate family. I wanted to believe this time would be different. I had bought a new shirt for tonight, pressed it carefully that morning. My younger brother Derek would be there, the golden boy, with his perfect career and perfect life. I took a deep breath, grabbed my keys, and stepped out into the cool evening air. Walking toward that restaurant entrance, I felt a fragile hope blooming in my chest. But what I did not know was that in less than 2 hours, I would make a phone call that would change everything about who this family depends on. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, because what happened at that dinner table changed everything. I thought I knew about family success and my own worth. Let us get into it. The moment I pushed through the heavy wooden door, the warm scent of garlic bread and marinara sauce hit me. Marcello's was the kind of place that screamed upscale. White tablecloths, dim amber lighting from wrought iron fixtures, and soft Italian music playing somewhere in the background. I spotted my family immediately at a corner table near the window. Dad sat at the head, his salt and pepper hair perfectly combed, wearing a charcoal blazer that made him look like he was about to close a business deal. Mom sat to his right, her smile warm, but her eyes carrying that anxious look I had known my whole life. And there was Derek, early 30s like me, sitting across from Mom in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. He had that confident posture, leaning back slightly, one arm draped over the chair beside him like he owned the place. I walked over, suddenly aware of my outfit. Clean khakis, a button-down shirt I had ironed myself, brown leather shoes I had polished that afternoon. Nothing fancy, nothing designer, just clean and presentable. But next to Derek's expensive suit, I felt like I had shown up underdressed to my own family dinner. Dad stood up first. He extended his hand for a handshake, not a hug. Formal, professional, like I was a business associate rather than his son. His grip was firm, almost testing. Mom rose next and pulled me into a hug, her perfume familiar and comforting. She held on a second longer than necessary, and I wondered if she sensed my nervousness. Derek gave me a nod from his seat, barely looking up from his phone. No handshake, no greeting, just acknowledgement that I had arrived. We all sat down. The table already had a bottle of red wine breathing in the center, the expensive kind with the Italian label I could not pronounce. Dad immediately turned his attention to Derek. "So tell me about the promotion." Dad said, his eyes lighting up in a way I rarely saw directed at me. Derek set his phone down, screen facing the table, and launched into his story. "Well, it is official now. Senior Vice President of Strategic Investments. The board voted unanimously last Tuesday. Corner office on the 42nd floor, full benefits package, company car." He rattled off the details like he was reading from a press release. I tried to find an opening. "Congratulations, Derek. That's really great. Actually, I also had some good news I wanted to share about the business." Dad cut me off without even looking at me. "Company car? What did they give you? Please tell me it is not one of those electric things." Derek laughed. "German sedan, fully loaded, black exterior, tan leather interior." "That is how you know you have made it," Dad said, nodding with approval. He poured more wine into Derek's glass than his own, skipping mine entirely. Mom reached over and touched my hand. "How is work, honey?" Her voice was gentle, but I could tell her heart was not fully in the question. She was just trying to include me. I cleared my throat. "It is going really well, actually. We just landed 3 new commercial contracts this month." The business is expanding, and I am thinking about opening a second location. Still fixing toilets? Dad interrupted again this time, looking at me with what I can only describe as benign dismissal, like he was asking about a hobby, not my career. I felt the words catch in my throat. It is a bit more than that, Dad. We handle commercial plumbing now. Full installations, building contracts, maintenance agreements with... Derek jumped in. Speaking of contracts, Dad, let me tell you about the Henderson deal we closed yesterday. $85 million in assets under management. I personally brought in $42 million of that. And just like that, I disappeared again. Dad leaned forward, completely engrossed in Derek's story. Mom smiled politely, sipping her wine. I sat there, my half-finished sentence hanging in the air, like smoke dissipating into nothing. What I did not say was that my plumbing business was pulling in 6 figures annually. What I did not mention was that I had 15 employees who depended on me, who I paid good wages with health benefits. What I did not share was that we had earned a 5-star reputation in 3 counties and had more work than we could handle. But why bother? They had already decided who I was. The waiter appeared with menus. Dad did not even open his. He ordered for Derek and himself. The lady will have the chicken piccata, he said, gesturing to Mom. Then he looked at me. And you, Philip. I scanned the menu quickly. The prices were higher than I expected. Appetizers were running $20 to $30. Entrees were pushing $45 to $60. I knew how this would end. I always knew. I will have the ribeye, I said, medium rare. Dad raised an eyebrow and chuckled. Hope you can afford that on a plumber's wage. He said it with a smile, like it was just a joke between family. But jokes have edges, and this one cut. Derek ordered the lobster tail with drawn butter. $58. Dad clapped him on the shoulder. That is my boy. You deserve it. You work hard for your money. I looked down at the menu again, doing the mental math. With wine, appetizers, dessert, this bill would easily hit $170, maybe more. And I knew, the way I always knew, that I would be the one paying it. Not because anyone would ask, not because it was fair, but because if I did not, the evening would end with awkward silences and Dad making passive-aggressive comments about splitting checks and who could afford what. This had been the pattern for years. I would quietly pick up the tab while Derek and Dad talked about investments and career moves. They would thank me absently, already moving on to the next topic. And I would drive home feeling like an ATM machine that occasionally got invited to family dinners. My mind drifted for a moment. 2 years ago, I had quietly paid off my parents' mortgage, $28,000. I had saved for months, worked extra jobs, taken on weekend emergency calls at double rates. When their bank threatened foreclosure, after Dad's business venture collapsed, I had stepped in. I transferred the money, called the bank, settled the debt. I never told Derek. I never asked for recognition. Mom knew, and she had hugged me with tears in her eyes, but we never spoke of it again. It was like it never happened. Last year, Mom needed surgery. Her insurance covered most of it, but there was still a balance of $15,000. I paid it, quietly, in installments over 6 months so they would not feel embarrassed. Mom had mentioned wanting to pay me back, but then never brought it up again. The debt evaporated from conversation like morning dew. Meanwhile, Derek had never contributed a single dollar to family emergencies. Not one. He was too busy building his portfolio, his career, his impressive life. Our food arrived on pristine white plates. The ribeye looked perfect, cooked exactly as I had ordered. Derek's lobster was presented like a work of art. Dad had ordered the veal, and he cut into it with the kind of satisfaction that comes from knowing someone else thinks you are important. So, Derek, Dad said, wiping his mouth with the linen napkin, I heard you bought a place downtown. Tell Philip about it. Here we go, I thought. Derek perked up. Oh, yeah. 3-bedroom condo, 18th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows with a river view, 1,500 square feet. The building has a gym, a rooftop terrace concierge service. Dad beamed. That is how you build wealth. Real estate, equity. What about you, Philip? You still renting that apartment over on Maple Street? Actually, I said carefully, I bought a house last year. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, decent yard. Dad was not listening. Derek is building his portfolio. That is the smart move. Buy property, let it appreciate, leverage equity for the next investment. That is how wealthy people think. I wanted to say that my house was paid off, completely. No mortgage, no debt. I had saved and bought it outright because I hated owing money. Meanwhile, Derek's beautiful condo was mortgaged to the ceiling. I knew because I had co-signed the loan when his credit was not quite good enough on its own. But I said nothing. Mom tried again. Philip has always been so practical. He is good with money. Practical. The word landed like a soft insult. Practical meant boring. Practical meant unambitious. Practical meant settling. Derek smirked into his lobster. He was enjoying this, watching me squirm, watching Dad compare us and finding me lacking. It was a game he had perfected over the years. My hands tightened around my fork. I focused on cutting my steak, chewing slowly, keeping my expression neutral. But inside I felt something shifting, a pressure building. Dad ordered another bottle of wine, the expensive one. We are celebrating tonight, he announced to no one in particular. The waiter poured fresh glasses. The conversation continued to swirl around Derek's accomplishments, his recent vacation to the Bahamas, his networking connections, the influential people he knew. Every sentence was another brick in the wall that separated us. I could feel the storm coming. I just did not know how bad it would be. Dessert menus arrived. Dad waved them away and ordered champagne instead. We have something to celebrate, he said, his voice taking on a ceremonial tone. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe this was it. Maybe Dad would acknowledge both of us. Maybe he would finally say something about the business I had built from nothing, the employees I supported, the reputation I had earned through honest work and reliability. The waiter brought a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket. He popped the cork with practiced elegance and poured 4 glasses. The bubbles rose and caught the amber light. Dad stood up, glass in hand. His chair scraped against the floor, and somehow the sound seemed louder than it should have been. A few people at nearby tables glanced over. My father had that effect. He commanded attention even in a crowded restaurant. I want to make a toast, he announced. The table went quiet. Mom smiled encouragingly. Derek leaned back, already looking pleased with himself. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, waiting. Dad cleared his throat. To my sons, 2 very different paths in life. My stomach tightened. Derek, Dad continued, his voice swelling with pride. You have made me so incredibly proud. Senior Vice President at 32 years old. You have achieved what every father dreams his son will achieve. You have become somebody. You have climbed the ladder, earned respect, built a career that matters. He raised his glass higher toward Derek. Derek nodded, accepting the praise like it was his natural due. Then Dad turned to me. His expression changed. Not hostile, not angry, just patronizing. Like he was about to explain something simple to someone who did not quite understand. And Philip, he said, pausing for effect, thank you for staying where you belong. The words hung in the air. I felt them land like stones in my chest. He continued, every society needs people who do the simple work, fix the pipes, unclog the drains, get their hands dirty. He forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. Someone has got to do it right. Not everyone can be a leader. Some people are meant to serve. Another pause. The table was silent. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade. So, here is to Derek, Dad said, raising his glass higher. for becoming someone. He turned back to me, and to Philip for knowing his place. He drank. Derek tried to hide his smirk behind his champagne flute but failed. I saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward. Mom looked down at her plate. Her face flushed. She did not drink. She did not speak. I did not raise my glass. I just sat there, hands still folded, face calm. But inside, everything was breaking. Dad noticed my stillness. Come on, Philip. Do not be so sensitive. It is just a joke. He laughed, the sound hollow and forced. You know I am just teasing. Just a joke. Those 3 words made it worse, because jokes are supposed to be funny. Jokes are not supposed to humiliate, and calling cruelty a joke does not make the cruelty disappear. It just makes you the bad guy for having feelings about it. I sat there thinking about numbers. $28,000 to save the house they almost lost. $15,000 for Mom's medical bills. Countless Sundays spent fixing things around their property. Free labor, free expertise. Emergency calls at 3 in the morning when their water heater burst. The time I drove 4 hours in a snowstorm because their furnace died and they had no heat. And this was the thanks. This was the recognition. Staying where I belong. A waiter walked past our table and froze mid-step, sensing the tension. Another couple at the next table had stopped their conversation, pretending not to listen, but clearly listening. Derek broke the silence first. So, Dad, did I tell you about the golf trip the firm is planning Pebble Beach? All expenses paid. Just like that. Moving on. Like nothing had happened. Like Dad had not just told me in front of my family and strangers that I was lesser, that I was small, that I knew my place. Mom reached over and touched my hand under the table. Her fingers were cold. Honey, she whispered, your father did not mean. I gently pulled my hand away. It is fine, Mom. My voice was steady, eerily calm, because I had made a decision in that moment, a decision that felt like stepping through a door I could never walk back through. I raised my hand and caught the waiter's attention. He approached cautiously, probably relieved to have a task to focus on. Can I have the check, please? I asked. Dad looked up from his champagne. What, we were going to split it, were we not? There was confusion in his voice, but also assumption. The assumption that I would, as always, just quietly handle things. No, I said. I have got it. You sure? Dad reached for his wallet in a performative gesture, already knowing he would not need it. That is probably $150 with the wine and everything. I'm sure. The check arrived in a black leather folder. I opened it without ceremony. $173.42. I pulled out my wallet and counted out $200 in cash, crisp 20s. I added an extra 30 for the tip. The waiter had been professional. He deserved it. I placed the bills inside the folder and closed it. Then I stood up my chair, scraping softly against the floor. Thank you for dinner, I said to the table. My voice was polite, controlled. I need to go. Mom's eyes widened. But we have not even had coffee yet. I have an early morning tomorrow. Job site starts at 6 a.m. I looked at Derek, made myself say it. Congratulations on the promotion. I hope it is everything you wanted. Then I looked at Dad. I did not say anything. I just held his gaze for 3 long seconds. Long enough for him to see that something had changed. Long enough for him to realize that his joke had landed differently than he intended. I turned and walked toward the exit. The restaurant suddenly felt too warm, too crowded, too small. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to be anywhere but here. I pushed through the heavy wooden door and stepped into the night. The cold air hit my face like a wake-up call. I stood there for a moment on the sidewalk, letting the chills sink into my skin. Behind me, through the window, I could see my family still sitting at the table. Derek was already talking, animated, probably telling another story about his important life. Dad was listening, nodding, refilling glasses. Mom sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. They had already moved on. The toast, the humiliation. My silent exit. It was already forgotten, already smoothed over by champagne and dessert conversation. That was when I knew for certain. I had always been invisible to them unless they needed something. I was the safety net they kicked whenever they wanted to feel taller. I walked to my truck, hands steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. The parking lot was quiet, a few scattered cars under flickering streetlights. My Ford F-150 sat in the back corner where I had parked it away from the expensive sedans near the entrance. It was not a fancy truck. 8 years old, 120,000 miles on it, paint fading on the hood. But it was reliable. It started every morning. It hauled tools and materials without complaint. It was paid for. I climbed into the driver's seat and closed the door. The silence was immediate and profound. I did not start the engine. I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at the restaurant. Through the large front window, I could see them. Dad gesturing with his hands, telling some story. Derek laughing. Mom sipping water. They looked like a family having a pleasant evening. Like nothing had happened. Like I had never been there at all. Memories started flooding back. Uninvited but insistent. I was 16. Dad's business truck had broken down. He needed it for a job the next morning. I spent 12 hours in our driveway figuring out the transmission issue, getting grease under my fingernails, missing a party I had been looking forward to. I fixed it. Saved him the $2,000 mechanic bill he could not afford at the time. He thanked me, used the truck, never mentioned it again. I was 23. Derek bought his first car, a used Audi he could not quite afford. The bank wanted a cosigner. His credit was not established. I signed. I was young and stupid and wanted my brother to like me. 6 months later, Derek defaulted on 2 payments. My credit took the hit. I made the payments to protect both of us. Never said a word. I was 27. Dad's latest business venture collapsed. The mortgage was 3 months behind. Foreclosure notices arrived in the mail. I had been saving for my own place, my own future. I emptied the account, $28,000, walked into the bank, paid the debt, saved the house. Mom cried. Dad shook my hand and said I was a good son. Then we never spoke of it again. Last year, Mom's surgery, $15,000 after insurance. I paid in installments so it would not feel like charity, so they could maintain dignity. They let me, then forgot, 3 months ago. Dad wanted to expand his business again. He needed an investor. I gave him $20,000, an investment he called it. We both knew I would never see that money again, but I gave it anyway, because family helps family, right? And in all those years, through all those crises, Derek contributed nothing. Not $1, not one weekend of free labor, not one emergency phone call answered. He was too busy building his career, his important life, his portfolio. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The screen glowed in the darkness of the truck cab. I navigated to automatic transfers. There it was, $800 every single month, transferred automatically from my account to my parents' checking account. For expenses, Dad had said, just to help out, just until things stabilized. That was 3 years ago. Things had never stabilized. The transfer had never stopped. I scrolled further, found the mortgage records, Derek's condo. My name was still on there as cosigner. The mortgage company sent me copies of every statement. I knew exactly what he owed. I knew his interest rate. I knew that without my signature, he never would have qualified for that loan. I pulled up my investment records. Dad's business venture. $20,000 sitting there, doing nothing. The business was barely breaking even. My money was just keeping it on life support. I sat there looking at the numbers. $80,000. That was the conservative estimate of what I had given this family over the past 3 years. Maybe more if I counted the free labor, the emergency calls, the weekends spent fixing their problems. $80,000 from someone who was supposed to stay where he belonged. The decision crystallized in my mind. Clear, simple, necessary. This was not about revenge. This was not about punishing them. This was about self-respect, about refusing to be invisible, about drawing a line and saying enough. They did not value me. They did not respect me. They saw me as a convenience, a resource to be used and dismissed. But they would notice when the money stopped. I took a deep breath. Then I started making calls. First call. I dialed the automated banking line, entered my account number, navigated through the menu options, found automatic transfers, selected the one to my parents' account. To cancel this transfer, press 1. I pressed 1. Your automatic transfer has been canceled effective immediately. Your confirmation number is 7329 Alpha. Thank you for banking with us. $800 a month. Gone. They would notice when the next mortgage payment came due and the cushion was not there. Second call. The mortgage company had a 24-hour hotline. I called it. Waded through the menu. Finally reached a human being. I need to remove myself as a co-signer on a mortgage, I said. The representative asked for the account number. I read it off from the statement I had saved in my phone. And you understand this may have consequences for the primary borrower, she asked. Yes, I understand completely. The primary borrower will need to refinance or prove sufficient individual income to maintain the loan. I understand. I knew what this meant. Derek's salary looked impressive on paper, but his expenses were astronomical. Car payments on the German sedan, the condo fees, the lifestyle he was maintaining. His savings account was a joke. Without my cosigner status, he would have to refinance at a much higher rate, or worse, he might not qualify at all. I will process the removal request, the representative said. You will need to send written confirmation within 10 business days. I will have it to you by Monday. Third call. I dialed Tom Dad's business partner. Tom was a good man. He had tried to warn me about investing. He had told me outright that Dad's business model was shaky, but I had invested anyway because family. Tom answered on the second ring. Philip, little late for a social call is not it. Tom, I need to pull out of the investment. Silence on the other end, then a long exhale. When? As soon as legally possible. That will hurt your dad's cash flow pretty badly. He was counting on that money for the expansion. I know. Another pause. Can I ask what happened? Let us just say I am done being taken for granted. Tom laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Cannot say I blame you, kid. Your old man has been using you as a personal bank for years. I have seen it. Told him he should appreciate you more. He did not listen. Will you have the paperwork ready? I will have it drawn up by Monday. It will take some time to return your investment, probably in installments, but you will get it back. I am not worried about the timeline. I just need out. Consider it done. And Philip, for what it is worth, I think you are making the right call. I thanked him and hung up. 3 phone calls, less than 20 minutes. The safety net was gone. My phone screen went dark. I sat in the silence of my truck engine still off, watching my breath fog the windshield. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm chirped. A couple walked past holding hands, laughing about something. I thought about what would happen next. The automatic transfer would fail. Mom would call the bank confused. They would check their account and see the cushion missing. Then they would realize. Then they would call me. Derek would get a letter from the mortgage company. Notification of cosigner removal. He would have 30 days to refinance. He would call me angry, demanding to know what I was doing. Maybe he would try to guilt me. Maybe he would threaten. Dad would find out that his expansion plans were dead in the water. Without my $20,000, he could not move forward. The business would limp along, barely surviving. He would have to make a choice, scale back or find another investor. But this time, he would have to convince someone who was not family. Someone who would ask hard questions. Someone who would demand accountability. I felt a strange sensation spreading through my chest. Lightness, like a weight I had been carrying for years, had suddenly lifted. My shoulders relaxed. My breathing deepened. This was what freedom felt like. I started the truck. The engine rumbled to life, familiar and comforting. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed home. The streets were quiet, most people already settled in for the night. I drove past the business district where my shop was located, Harrison and Sons Plumbing. I had kept the family name even though Dad had never worked a day in the business, even though he had dismissed what I did as fixing toilets. 15 employees, good wages, health benefits, retirement contributions. I took care of my people because I knew what it felt like to be undervalued. My workers were loyal because I treated them with respect. I drove past my house. A modest 2-story with white siding and black shutters, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a garage where I kept my tools organized, a yard where I planned to build a deck this summer. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive to people like Dad and Derek, but it was mine. Fully paid for. No mortgage, no debt. No one could take it from me. I pulled into my driveway and killed the engine. Sat there for a moment looking at my house. The porch light was on. Inside, everything was exactly as I had left it. Clean, organized, peaceful. I pulled out my phone one more time. Looked at the contacts. I could block their numbers right now. Dad, Mom, Derek. Just delete them from my life completely. But I did not. Not out of weakness. Not because I was hoping for reconciliation, but because I wanted them to be able to call. I wanted them to reach out. I wanted them to realize in their own time what they had lost. Let them call. Let them ask why. Let them face the consequences of taking someone for granted for so long that the person finally walked away. I went inside. The house was quiet. I did not turn on the television. Did not pour a drink. Just went upstairs, took a shower, and got into bed. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking up anxious. 3 days passed before the calls started. Tuesday morning, 6:30 a.m. I was already at a job site when my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. I was on a ladder installing pipes in a new commercial building. 20 minutes later, she called again. I climbed down, wiped my hands on my work pants, and answered, "Philip, honey, I need to talk to you." Her voice was strained. "What is wrong, Mom?" "Something is wrong with the bank account. The automatic transfer did not come through this month. I called the bank and they said it was canceled, but that does not make sense." "Did you get a new account or something?" I leaned against my truck. "No, Mom. I canceled it." Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end. "You canceled it. Why?" "Because I needed to." "But we count on that money, Philip. The mortgage, the utilities, I know you do. So you will set it up again? Maybe there was just a mistake." "It was not a mistake. I am not setting it up again." Her voice cracked. "I do not understand. Did we do something wrong?" I wanted to laugh. Did we do something wrong? Like she genuinely could not connect the dots. Like Sunday's dinner had already evaporated from memory. "Mom, I have been supporting this family financially for years, and at dinner Dad made it very clear what he thinks of me and what I do. So I am done being the family bank." "Your father was just joking, honey. You know how he is. He did not mean anything by it. He meant every word, and even if he did not, it still hurt. And nobody at that table stood up for me, including you." I heard her start to cry. Soft, quiet tears. The kind designed to make me feel guilty. And part of me did feel guilty, but a stronger part of me felt relief. "I am not cutting you off completely, Mom, but the automatic transfers are done. If you need help with something specific, you can ask me directly, and I will decide if and how I want to help. But the free money every month, that is over. Your father is going to be so upset. I am sure he is. Can we talk about this maybe this weekend? Come over for dinner and we can. I have to get back to work, Mom. I have a job to do. I hung up before she could guilt me further. My hands were shaking slightly, but I did not call back. I did not apologize. I climbed back up the ladder and got back to work. That evening, Derek called. I was home eating leftover pizza watching a baseball game. I saw his name on the screen and almost did not answer, but curiosity won. "What do you want, Derek? What the hell, man?" His voice was angry, not hurt, not concerned, just angry. "The mortgage company called me today. Said you are removing yourself as cosigner. You cannot just do that." "Actually, I can." And I did. "Do you know what this means? I will have to refinance. The rates are higher now. My payment could go up $300 a month." "Then you should have treated me with more respect." "This is about Sunday." "Seriously, Dad was just joking around. You are being ridiculous." Dad raised a glass and toasted my failure in front of my family. That is not a joke, Derek. That is humiliation. You are too sensitive. You always have been. I felt my jaw tighten. I am not too sensitive. I just finally realized that you and Dad have been using me for years and giving me nothing but contempt in return. Using you? What are you talking about? Do you know who paid off Mom and Dad's mortgage when they were about to lose the house? Me. Do you know who paid for Mom's surgery? Me. Do you know who has been sending them $800 a month for 3 years? Me. You have never contributed a single dollar to this family's emergencies. Not once. So do not talk to me about being ridiculous. Silence. For the first time in the conversation, Derek had nothing to say. "Figure out your mortgage on your own," I said, like I have always figured out everything on my own. "Dad was right about you," Derek finally said, his voice cold. "You are selfish." I hung up, blocked his number. I did not need that toxicity in my life. 2 weeks later, Dad showed up at my shop. I was in the office going over invoices when one of my guys knocked on the door. "Hey, boss, there is someone here to see you. Says he is your dad." I looked up surprised. Dad had never visited my business, not once in the 8 years I had owned it. "Send him in." Dad walked into my office looking around like he was seeing it for the first time. And he was. The clean white walls, the filing cabinets organized with labeled folders, the calendar on the wall showing job schedules, the frame business license, the thank you letters from satisfied clients tacked to a corkboard. He sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. "Philip, we need to talk." I closed my laptop. "About what? The money or the toast?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look what I said at dinner. It came out wrong. It was supposed to be lighthearted, a joke between family. It was not lighthearted, Dad, and it was not funny. You told me in front of everyone that I should stay in my place, that I was less than Derek, that what I do does not matter. I did not mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" He did not have an answer. He looked down at his hands, then back up at me. "Your mother is very upset. The money you were sending, we were counting on it." "I know. That is the problem. You were counting on it, but never once acknowledged it. Never once thanked me for it. You just expected it. Family helps family," he said, using the same line he always used. "You are right. Family helps family. But respect works both ways, Dad. I have been helping this family for years, financially, physically, emotionally, and what have I gotten in return? Dismissed, mocked, compared to Derek, and found lacking every single time." He tried a different approach. "What about the business investment Tom said you are pulling out?" "I am. But I need that money. The expansion is not my responsibility. I gave you $20,000 as a favor, and you thanked me by telling me I know my place. So yeah, I am pulling out. You want to expand, find another investor, someone who will ask you hard questions about your business plan and your profit margins, someone who will hold you accountable. Dad stood up, his face reddening. You are being petty. Punishing us over one comment. It was not one comment, Dad. It was a lifetime of comments. Sunday was just the last one I am willing to tolerate. So what? You are just cutting us off your own family. I am setting boundaries. There is a difference. You want my help, you can ask, respectfully. And I will decide if I want to give it. But the days of automatically bailing you out while getting treated like I am worthless, those days are over. He stared at me for a long moment. I stared back. Neither of us blinked. Finally, he turned and walked to the door. Before leaving, he looked back. Derek was right. You are selfish. If standing up for myself makes me selfish, I said calmly, then I am fine with that. He left. The door closed. I sat there for a minute processing. Then I got back to work. Months went by. I focused on my business, opened a second location like I had planned, hired 5 more people, started bidding on bigger contracts. My reputation grew. The work was steady. The income was good. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected, guys from high school who had always respected what I did, who understood the value of working with your hands, building something real. We started meeting for beers on Friday nights, talking about sports and life and plans for the future. I started dating someone I met at a Chamber of Commerce event. She owned a bakery downtown. She appreciated hard work because she understood it. When I told her about my family situation, she did not judge. She just listened. And when I was ready, she shared her own stories about setting boundaries with difficult relatives. I still helped Mom occasionally. When her kitchen sink started leaking, I came over and fixed it. Not because she asked, but because I chose to. On my terms. She thanked me genuinely this time. We did not talk about the money. We did not talk about Dad. We just talked about small things. Recipes, the weather, easier topics. I did not hear from Derek at all. He refinanced his mortgage at a higher rate. I heard through Mom that he was struggling to keep up with the payments. Part of me felt bad, but mostly I felt free. Dad never apologized. I did not expect him to. Some people are incapable of admitting they were wrong. So I let it go. Not for him, for me. Because carrying that anger was exhausting. I learned something important during those months. Freedom is not about revenge. It is not about punishing people who hurt you. It is about refusing to accept less than you deserve. It is about knowing your worth even when the people closest to you do not see it. Family can be the people you are born to, or it can be the people you choose. Sometimes it is both, sometimes it is neither. But respect must be mutual. Love must be mutual. Support must go both ways. I thought about that toast sometimes, my dad raising his glass, thanking Derek for becoming someone and thanking me for staying where I belong. He was wrong. I did not stay where I belonged. I belonged exactly where I had built myself to be. Owner of a successful business, employer of good people, a man who paid his bills, kept his word, and treated others with dignity. I did not need a corner office or a title to be someone. I already was someone. I had just been waiting for external validation to believe it. Now I did not need that validation anymore. These days when I raise a glass, it is to myself, to the man I became, not because someone believed in me, but because I believed in myself, to the boundaries I set and the respect I demand, to the life I built with my own 2 hands. And that toast, that one actually means something. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a comment below and share your story. Have you ever had to set boundaries with people you love? How did it turn out? I would really like to hear from you. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about standing up for yourself and finding your worth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might be struggling with the same feelings of being undervalued and overlooked. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you realize that you deserve respect, you deserve recognition, and you deserve to be valued for who you are. Take care of yourselves out there. You are worth more than you know.